some cases, it's a real opportunity because we can now draw from talent from almost anywhere. Obviously, time zones present an opportunity but they can be overcome, you know. And so it's a real opportunity, but then again, it's also a threat. So for those people that used to be close to your location, that you could sort of have that captured market, they're now out there and available to anybody who has got the right opportunity or an exciting opportunity for them. So in terms of recruitment, for us, it's as challenging as it's always been. There are more opportunities that COVID have brought through an extended talent pool that we can tap into. I think we have to be really creative about you know, people's working style, and we have to open up to saying, yeah, if you want to live and work in Paris or Munich or Budapest and come and work for us in Howard Kennedy, then we need to work out how we can achieve that. And so I think that's something that we are keen to work through. I think one of the opportunities that we need to get beyond is when somebody is onboarded, how do they get the culture of the business? Because law firms are very culture oriented, our businesses are very culture orientated. And I think what's super important is that people who are recruited into your business understand the culture, and trying to get that cultural aspect across via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, you need to work at it and work much harder. So onboarding of new talent is probably more of a challenge than it was before. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for the industry. You know, technologists are lucky because they understand how to connect and do their job remotely. So yeah, I think it's great news for us.
It's changed in many good ways, in my opinion. In the legal support arena, new hires have expanded to include talent that's outside of geographical restraints. Working from home has proven that one doesn't have to be in the same office city, so the talent pool has become much wider. And I think that's a good thing. It's going to increase competition. The skill sets that talent recruiters look for are not going to be limited to just the traditional casework role that they're seeking. And what I mean by that is there's a new focus, I think, on the employee's ability to work independently, that they need to excel in communication skills, and have an agility in new technologies in addition to their main duties. But on the other hand, I think the Zoom interview and onboarding process really is a challenge. And it remains to be seen how successful it'll be or not. Your on-camera presence is a measure of talent that we didn't see before this work from home environment. So I do wonder how recruiters are going to evaluate soft skills such as your ability to handle stress, your likability, do you play well with others, all of those sort of things that are caught, I think, best in the in-person experience. So for me, I think recruiters have had to adapt their evaluation methodology, and talent has had to have a new skill and get good at it, even if it's not part of the skill set that will be part of their job.
With the pandemics, everything changed, and of course, one of the things that have changed and brought us new challenges is the talent recruitment. It's not the same to interview somebody by electronic means than interviewing personally. It's a different thing, and of course we had to develop new skills for us as interviewers. But in the other hand, and I always try to look for the opportunities in the challenges and in crisis, the remote working brought us a new possibility of having people getting on board on our teams, hiring people that maybe if there was no remote working, they could not, or they should not work for us because they are in another country or in a different city. So I always try to stay with the positive way of the things. So the most important part for me from this was to begin bringing on board people that in a different situation and without remote working, they wouldn't be working for us. So it makes a broader market for people that will be able to join our teams.
I think obviously the most obvious way is that we have to be more creative in how we are hiring people. The biggest change I see is the opportunity to reach beyond traditional geographical barriers. If we think even back to the ILTA On conference, we were able to reach and have people be live across the globe who never would have been able to come in person. And so in the way that we're looking at recruiting talent, it no longer has to be about a geographical boundary, getting someone to come into the office to interview and have to move to a specific or certain city. We really have the opportunity, I think, to increase the diversity of our talent pool by looking more broadly. Secondly, I would say for those in organizations, whether it be law firms or other organizations that have legal focus, there are many who would have never agreed to working remotely or having a remote workforce. But I think now in this new normal, whatever that looks like, we can permanently risk losing top talent if we aren't open to remote working. I don't think we can say we forced you to go home to work during a pandemic because we had to, but now that it's over, when it is over, we don't trust you to do that anymore. So it's just not going to be something that's going to go away, I think, in most organizations. I was reading an article earlier this week by an HR consultant who said that they had done a lot of analysis of job search queries in the last 3 months. And work from home was the top phrase that people were looking for. So it's certainly not going away.
So it's changed talent development in a lot of ways, I think. There's the opportunity to focus. So if you've got a proper personal development plan and you've got some really good online learning or virtual learning that can be done, then you can create the time and the space to do that without interruption because you're at your home and at your desk and you can do that. I think obviously the challenges that come with development remotely is you don't learn through that osmosis. The way you learn in an office where you've got a buzz going on and you hear what people are talking about and you hear how people problem solve out loud in a group, you don't hear that when you're working remotely. In terms of technologists, we've got one guy who cut across from our service desk team into our third line support team, and I was only chatting to him the other day there about putting him onto a much more formal training program with a formal training provider that will take him through stages that he would have learned in the office sitting next to the other technical guys, but he's just not getting that headspace because it's difficult. We haven't really mastered we'll just log on to a Teams call and keep that open all day so that colleagues can pick up on what's going on and use that natural collaborative problem solving technique that we do in the office. So I think remote working's made it more challenging for people who are developing and learning, and it's incumbent on people like myself and those senior people in the team to be aware of that, reach out regularly, involve them in some of those conversations that happen impromptu via Teams and bring them into that conversation and look for more formal mechanisms to try and bridge that gap.
Firms have had to quickly add the support for the remote workforce. outfitting their teams not only with equipment, but with access. And for example, support folks may not have previously had firm issued laptops. I know that's something we had to address when we went remote. And I do worry again about the lack of in-person for onboarding in our talent development. And having done a lot of that over many years, it's invaluable to eliminate the tech noise of looking at multiple screens, typing, multitasking online, watching faces and backgrounds if the dog comes into the room during the onboarding experience. Because you have a limited amount of time with each person and you want to make the most of it. Training sessions are all remote, and that's another part of the talent development sector that I participate in quite often. And as someone who does them, I find that my preparation is even more important in that I have a very finite time to get the important messages across and how to keep their attention. Interactive workshops, for example, can be very challenging and a new skill that I've had to come up with. But interestingly, during those experiences, I've noticed a lot more peer-to-peer help happening. So it's not just the remember you're on mute cue that you get from your peers, but helping each other. If you need to reduce your screen, here's what you do. Any of the other sort of technical things that they might experience, I'm finding more of an interaction between the peers. And I think a huge plus is that cloud technology adoption has not just increased, but it's now mandatory. So for example, Teams and OneDrive versus the traditional login via your VPN to local servers, has really taken over. And collaboration tools that were sort of viewed in the past as extra, maybe something I don't need to learn, are now must-haves. So it's made it a lot easier for those of us in the innovation world and tech rollout departments to get buy-in from our users. And in turn, our users have developed new talents that we've been supporting.
This is one of the main challenges that we faced in the last year. And of course, we will continue facing this because it's not the same when you are in the office or you can travel and stay with the team. In the past 12 months, we were focused on executing, but at the same time, we had to pay attention to talent development and ensure that the pandemic didn't affect the career paths for the different people. So with remote working, everything changed. And of course, we have to find the right ways to continue leading by example, to continue staying with our teams, and of course, finding the ways to ensure that we continue adding value to our teams in order to ensure that they are still developing their careers. It's interesting. My feeling was that despite we were not going to the office for almost a month, I felt closer to my team than never before. With no trips, with no, despite we didn't have personal meetings, we found a way to meet almost every day to ensure that I was aware of the needs of my team and ensure that they had the right information to continue developing their careers. And of course, my direct reports had to do the same with the rest of the team. So these new challenges of remote working brought us different situations that we had to learn how to deal with them, not interacting personally, but finding different ways of doing that, and not only focusing on execution, which is the main point that everybody was trying to ensure we worked with that focus. However, we should not forget about the talent development. Continue bringing to the team possibilities for education, for improvement. Continue doing, I don't know, legal summits or meetings that before maybe were meant for closer or for smaller groups, but with the pandemics, we decided to make it a bigger crowd and bigger groups in order to ensure that we were all on the same page. We were all thinking about the same things, and of course, talent development is key for the team, with the pandemics and without the pandemics.
I think it's changed talent development by clearly showing where some of our skill gaps are. I think many, and particularly in law firms, were able to get away with not learning something that was critical to the business because someone sitting outside their door or multiple people sitting outside their door knew how to do it. When we were all forced to go home, people were sitting there without the ability to do the most basic of skills because they had never had to learn how to do it. I think remote working shows us rapidly where those skill deficiencies are. And frankly, it also shows us the skills that our business models rely on to work day to day. So we have to imagine or reimagine, I guess, how our team's day-to-day work is changing or has changed with the remote opportunities that we have, or the remote challenges, whichever way you want to look at it. And we need to focus on increasing the skills that really help with that capability. I think it identifies shifts in activities, behavior, and the skills that are needed to successfully do that. And not everyone has those by default. I read another article, and it wasn't the same one, but it was by a different HR consultant who said that, and I wrote this down because I think it's really important to hear what she said, that organizations should really focus on investing in 4 kinds of skills now: digital, higher cognitive, social, and emotional. And I think those are spot on, considering the remote challenges that, or the challenges that remote work can in fact bring. As far as how do we do that, it's not easy. And I think there are some learning pathways that can be laid out. Most of those are probably going to be self-directed. I followed an ILTA community conversation recently where people were talking about just that. How are we training in this environment? How are we making sure that folks have the skills that they need? And just-in-time training, of course, is a great way to do that. Zoom presents some opportunities, but also some challenges with in-person training, using that term, of course, in quotes. Our folks at Womble have done a fantastic job during this of sending out very brief video clips of skills that we need, or things maybe we didn't know. We took it for granted because we were in the office and they just worked, for example. And so being sensitive to what people need, I think, really is the key to this. Being flexible, of course, and we don't have the opportunity to be in classrooms anymore, at least for a bit. And so recognizing that there are alternative learning methods, I think will be a real value and benefit to us going forward.
I think the skills that are emerging they're around cloud technologies and how to link cloud technologies together to deliver services in a secure and robust way. It's without doubt the direction of travel. We've certainly seen that in law firms over the last 2 or 3 years, and particularly over the last year with the adoption of cloud services. So having people who can work or understand cloud technologies, work out how to put them together to deliver products and services to colleagues and clients is definitely a role that's on the up. The information security analysts and the data analysts, they're a premium and difficult to get in the market, and that's an area that we'll see more and more talent going into. I think the things that are diminishing are things like hard and technical resources around sort of infrastructure and telephony and the boys and girls that look after wide area networks and local area networks and things, as we move more to software orientated networking and as I say, sort of cloud services, we'll look to have less of the hardened technicals and buy that as a service from a third party, and look to have people with much more application skills or skills that are interpersonal and communicative skills, who can take those relatively complex IT ways of working and mold them through communications and good education to something that's simple for our colleagues to grasp and learn and adopt. Yeah, so I think the hardened IT skills will move away from internal IT organizations and move much more to providers. And the skills that we'll be looking for is sort of solutions architecture around cloud type resources and services, and those people with much more softer skills that can relate business problems to IT technicals and come up with solutions to meet the colleagues and clients' needs.
Looking at it externally, there's been an uptick in Microsoft Teams support consultants being used by firms. I'm also seeing a lot of platform and interoperability developers coming to the forefront. And that's something that we're exploring, and I think other firms are as well. I think you might want to see a recent article in law.com on this very trend, that firms are looking towards the best of breed and versus the one-stop shops. Internally, IT and more end user software support has really taken off, and something that, you know, we're working very hard, I think, as everyone is, to increase that for their own people. As I mentioned earlier, peer support and training, I think, will grow. I hope it grows. But I also hope that old workflows are retired now that we have a proof of process that these new systems work. But most importantly, and maybe that's just a hope of mine, is that the human interaction, the return to the in-person, even if it's a hybrid and we still have to use some technology, it's something we all crave. And I think we're going to place more value on that experience and that process to engage our clients, engage our coworkers. And I think that that's going to take on new relevance and a more importance in our day-to-day activities.
Well, I think that the skills that are needed and are more and more important in these times are those related to the way that we execute and how we execute with excellence, and what is our understanding about executing with excellence. For example, us at Mercado Libre, we find that doing the things in a proper way and doing simple and doing them on time. So time and doing things in a simple way are very important. But one of the skills that for me is more and more important and now is crucial is enabling business. How we as lawyers could add value to the organization, to the company, and being business enablers and business partners. In these times where companies are having struggles and are having hard times in certain industries, everything that we could do as lawyers to empower and enable business is going to be very important. And in the other hand, it is important to show that we are flexible, that we are thinking out of the box and trying to get the things done. This is key to walk with the company through these turbulent times. And of course, we need to ensure that we prioritize and balance very well which are the business needs and which are the legal risks and put all together and ensure that we have everything clear in order to enable business for the company.
Well, I'll start with the positive first, which I think is emerging. And it's not earth-shattering by any means, but the two to me that are the most obvious are adaptability and flexibility. For a year or so prior to the pandemic, we actually had piloted a work at home program for our team where folks could opt in or out to work from home 2 days a week. And we were fortunate to be able to have done that, because then when the pandemic occurred, we were able to go home fairly seamlessly. But I say that because there were two folks on the team that did not want to do that. They liked home being home and work being work. And so I was a little bit worried about, when we didn't have a choice, how they would transition to working at home. And while I can say they don't love it, they have adapted very well. They've been flexible with setting up a work environment where they weren't comfortable doing that before. And frankly, their performances remain just as high as it was when it was in the office. So just a little bit of an anecdote to say, of course, those two skills in this kind of environment are absolutely critical. And I think as we navigate through whatever the new normal becomes, and I don't love that phrase, but the reality is it's going to be different than what we've done before. Adaptability and flexibility are absolutely critical. As far as what will diminish, and I'm thinking in terms of law firms, particularly because that's my experience, those who are the masters of the paper file, the ones who have all the files and hold things in their hands, and I love paper, a good paper document to read as much as anyone, but we just aren't going to see, as everything becomes so virtual, that skill is going to, I think, have to pivot to something, whether it be more of a KM focused repository, those types of things. So having that file, and sort of in line with that is the keepers of the silos of information. To me, the one thing that struck me about virtual is, while we're not together, we have to collaborate more than we did when we were in offices beside each other. And so breaking down those silos, I don't think we're going to have those quite as much. At least I would hope not, because in order for us to collaborate when we're apart, we have to be more open and more willing to share our knowledge. And that's one thing I love about ILTA is just the amount of information you get. There aren't a lot of silos. People are willing to share their experiences, and I think that's going to be something we'll see diminish in firms over the course of this pandemic running its course, and kind of showing us the way things are going to be, is people being more open to sharing their information. And maybe not, but I really do believe that there's an opportunity there to do that.